Today we've got a great revenge story on somebody that's always threatening to give out book spoilers. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I resigned during a meeting with a huge client. Some years ago, I worked at a digital agency who was actually a big player in the national scene. It was me who was responsible for maintenance and availability for some software used by our core clients, and I ran the team who did the same for other clients. Year after year, I got denied raises, or got a pay rise that's just laughable, asked so many times for a partner or sidekick as I was drowning in work, but they didn't feel the need as I was still able to keep it running while I was simultaneously running myself into the ground. Here comes the 6-month performance review, and yet again I voiced my concerns about my well-being and financial situation, and yet again I was denied anything. Unbeknownst to them, I was offered a position at a competitor, granting me better pay and better workloads. After the performance review, we had an in-person meeting with the second biggest client for contract renewals, and as I was responsible for maintenance, I was also included as to give input on SLA conditions and pricing. During that meeting, I was rereading the offer, which my manager saw, mailed the competitor I accepted their offer, got the contract in my email within 5 minutes, and digitally signed it within 10. Mailed HR, my manager, and some execs my resignation. Fun fact is that all the execs I mailed were also in the meeting. Didn't take long for faces becoming red with anger and they paused the meeting, got pulled apart and got questioned what the freak I'm doing, explained my side of the story, and was met with utter disbelief. My manager and HR got chewed out, I got better pay and better working conditions at the competitor. Client renewed their contracts that year, but left the year after because of inadequate maintenance and the company not being able to meet the 99.999% uptime SLA. Career is popping off, my old employer is downscaling business because of a harsh market. So I feel like this is kind of a classic know your worth kind of story. Don't get me wrong though, it is kind of a boss move to resign during the meeting in front of all of those people and literally send the email and you can watch the reactions live. I don't think I would have it in me to do it in front of them like that. To be fair though, if you had grown to resent these people for years and years and they weren't giving you opportunities, they weren't giving you fair raises, imagine how good it must have felt to watch that reaction unfold live in front of all of them. Mr. Coastliner commented, "Not going to lie, I initially thought you vocally resigned during the meeting, which would have put the clients in a really awkward place. Good employees get taken for granted too often. They have comp teams analyzing the market rates for pay when hiring to ensure they're competitive. What they don't do is if they find the existing employees are below market rate, is to increase their salary above the 3 to 4% annual and meet the market rate. It costs so much to recruit, hire, train, set up pensions, etc. for a new employee and likely have to pay them more than the existing employee asked for. You would think they would focus more on how to retain talent. My company is similar in that way that there's set salary increases and no negotiation. So what usually happens is people leave and then 6 to 12 months later, they're called or emailed to be re-recruited and typically get a large salary increase and or a promotion. The boomerangs are prominent. OP responded commenting, "Yeah, I was trying to avoid me making it awkward. The client still is a big part and good resource for my network and still am on very good terms with their engineering crew, including their execs. It's funny my execs had to make it awkward as to how my still applicable NDA is set up for them. That had a clause that in case of resignation, I had to immediately be barred from any discussions or meeting for future stuff. So halfway and when they paused it, I wasn't welcome back in the meeting. Fun days it was. Happy I'm sleeping way better now though." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, my neighbor kept letting his dog pee on my porch, so I made sure he got a splash too. For months, my downstairs neighbor thought my steps were his dog's personal bathroom. I asked him to stop, he smirked and said, "Dogs will be dogs." Meanwhile, I was the one scrubbing pee off my porch every morning, so I got a little creative. I sprinkled a layer of sand on the steps and then placed a shallow tray of water just where the dog always lifted his leg. Next time, the mutt did his usual routine, except this time the pee ricocheted right back, splashing all over my neighbor's expensive sneakers. He jumped back, cursing while I enjoyed the view from my window with a cup of coffee. Funny thing, the dog hasn't been anywhere near my porch since, and every time I see those stained sneakers, I smile a little wider. I don't want to like disparage OP in any way. I mean, it worked out, but and let me clarify, maybe this is just me being dumb, but what does the sand in the tray of water have to do with anything? Like, did OP come up with a really fancy solution that ultimately was essentially toilet splashback? CMB Dragon 98 commented, "Sure, you knew exactly where to put a bowl of water. The sand was necessary because... and you just knew the water would manage to cause a ricochet that you actually wanted and the owner surely would care about? And you know what else? I'm the Tooth Fairy." Our next story is, he said soon a few too many times, so I went nuclear. Back in the early 2000s, I worked for an Eastern Canadian telecom company that merged with a Western Canadian telecom company. I'm hoping that the old area manager sees this. In December of that year, corporate announced that they were giving service reps a raise of up to $3.50. It was being given because they feared Eastern employees would join the union in the West. The raises would be administered by the area managers starting in January. Our area manager had 7 or 8 stores, so I assumed it would take a month or 2 to roll them out. In February, I started asking the area manager about the raise, and he always said, soon. I asked him 5 or 6 times between February and May. Eventually, I realized he was delaying as long as possible to pump up his quarterly bonuses. In early May, I wrote a strongly worded 4-page letter and saved it for the right moment. The right moment arrived on the Friday of the May long weekend. That morning, the area manager came in, and as always, I asked about the raise. He said it would come soon. Thankfully, this man liked boasting about his Muscata cottage, and I used it to my advantage. He mentioned he would be leaving for the cottage around noon. I asked how long the drive was. He said they planned to arrive around 3 in the afternoon. Here's where the magic happens. At 4 p.m., I opened my work email and sent my 4-page letter about how we employees were being screwed by the area manager and why a union was becoming the only option, to the direct email of the president and CEO. Saturday morning, I got to work at 7 a.m. My goal was to ruin his weekend by having the CEO tear him a new one. Instead, he was forced to drive back to Toronto from Muskoka to apologize to me and to inform me that everyone in the area would get their raise retroactive to January 1st, and that everyone from my location was getting the maximum raise. I got much more revenge than I could have imagined. We spoke outside in the parking lot, and I could see in his face he wanted me dead, but he had lost. He told me I had ruined the weekend for him, and he would have appreciated it if I'd spoken to him first. I told him I would be glad to forward him the email I wrote to the CEO, which documents all dates and times when I did speak to him, and he blew me off. I told him he was stealing from me by delaying my raise, so I think it's fair that he had lost his bonus and his weekend sucked. At that point, I decided I'd owned the meeting and ended it on my terms. I said there was nothing more to discuss and that I was going into the store. I gave him the nastiest goodbye. I told him to have a great drive to Muskoka. I hear it's quite scenic, and walked away. I wasn't worried about retribution, as I was planning to leave in 6 to 8 months as I was commencing my career. I got numerous calls from workers in other locations thanking me, and I made sure to share the full story as no one told me to say nothing. Edit, addition to the story. On a side note, before I did any of this, I had called stores in other areas and found out they had their raises between February and early March. Am I the only one here wondering why the union is used as like a tool to be used as a threat and not like just actually joined? Like, don't get me wrong, it got OP all that money back, it got them the maximum raise and whatnot in the end, so it worked out. But like, wouldn't they rather just join the union anyways and like get that guaranteed negotiation power? I mean, I've never been in a union, so am I like really overselling the idea of a union? Beth commented, I worked for a nationwide company in the early 2000s. Bonuses came in February or March. April rolled around and no bonuses. Soon was all we heard. Then they had to wait for the new budget. Then they had to get the VP to sign off. It was always an excuse. July comes in, they call us together. Finally, GM says the branch was closing and we were all laid off. They just strung us along to last until they were ready to close. No job, no bonus. Anderson News Company. Our next story is Revenge Against Annoying Medicare Scammers. So I have countless scam calls hit me up daily, sometimes 6 or 7 days a week in most cases. The Medicare scam calls are particularly annoying and they for some reason just won't stop. But I figured out a way to absolutely drive them nuts. They want to talk to old people, So why not act like the most senile old person on the planet? I just spoke to this one lady who tried to sell me on some flexible back brace that was covered by Medicare, some type of scam thing. Well, I proceeded to string her along for almost 20 minutes. When she asked for my Medicare number, I read off the 800 number that Medicare uses for customer service. She asked for the letters in the ID, and I started reading out the 1-800 Medicare number as it reads out. She was so annoyed. After 10 plus minutes of this, she got fed up and asked for my social. So obviously I'm not going to give out my social to a stranger from India. So to set her off even more, I then Googled the 1-800 number the Social Security office uses for customer service and tried to act like she wants the phone number for Social Security to get this back brace. The more flustered she got, the more I kept accusing her of playing games on me and called her a stupid weevil. I could hear her get audibly ticked. I just pretended to be the most senile yet agitating old man that she's probably ever dealt with. She muted herself twice probably to cuss me out without a doubt. She ended up hanging up on me as I reverted back to the 800 number for Medicare again. She probably threw her headset and cussed some more before going for a smoke. I'm probably blacklisted by now. Now, I don't know how these scam call centers work, but if they had any inkling of an idea that OP is the most senile old person they've ever met, I don't know if OP would be the one to go on the blacklist or to go on the green list of keep trying until we strike gold. If anything, maybe OP's just putting a bigger target on their back. OP is accidentally portraying the cash cow of an Indian scam call center. Tula27 commented, "Good for you. When my mom was diagnosed with dementia, those jerks would try to scare her and try to rip her off. I had to undo some things that they added to her plan. One was teeth whitening. She wore dentures. I despise those people." OP responded commenting, "They're freaking vultures. They act like they care about you until they steal your personal information." Our next story is, I purposely spoiled the end of a 14-book novel series because of rudeness. I was in a fantasy book subreddit and said the name of a supporting character in a post. I revealed nothing about this character except their name. Some rando told me I spoiled because now he knows the name of a future character. There are 2,000 named characters in this 14-book series, and I told him that I spoiled nothing with my post. He began berating me and calling me names, insulting my intelligence, so I spoiled the ending of the series. Since he doesn't know the name I leaked, he's obviously not even to the middle of the series. I sent him a DM so I didn't break the sub's rules and spoiled the whole thing. Told him who dies, how and why, how the big bad was defeated, what happened after the climax, and a few fan theories about the world after the story. I ruined months of reading for him, and I don't feel bad at all. So let me just put something out there. I know this whole channel is about Reddit, but if you're consuming media and you do not want to be spoiled, do not look at the relevant subreddit for it. I cannot tell you, even with subs that are anti-spoilers in the posts of the stories or the images or whatnot, how many times I want to go look up a subreddit for a show I'm watching to read the comments of people who watched it as it came out, and I come across a post right on the front page of the subreddit that's how do you think they'll bring X character back from the dead in the next season? I had a very similar problem to that happen to me when I was Googling Breaking Bad. The ending of the show was the headline of a news post that popped up right on the page. Pundum1C commented, "One time my brother was being an absolute menace and was reading a series I'd already finished. I told him if he kept on, I would spoil the series for him. He continued, so I gave him a major plot point. He flipped out on me, but continued to poutily read the book. In one of the books, my spoiler is revealed to be a fake out, so he laughs and tells me, 'Good one, you got me.' At the end of the series, it turns out to be true, and he got upset all over again." Our next story is, want to hand my number out to your perverted friends? That's fine. I'll get you back tenfold, baby. This happened a few years back, and although it's petty, I still can't help but get overwhelmed with maniacal glee every time I think about it. Mwahaha. So I was dating this guy, a typical D-bag really, no job, no ambition, still lived at home with his parents, etc. You know the type. Thankfully, we only dated for a couple of months, and I realized he had zero will to change, and dumped him like a hot rock. Anyway, long story short, he did not take the breakup very well. I was sitting at home minding my own business, binging on Netflix when suddenly my phone rang. I usually don't answer numbers I don't recognize, but something told me to answer that time. When I picked up, there was a man's voice on the other end of the line. He asked if it was me, and I was like, "That depends. Who is this?" He said, "I know this is gonna sound really weird, but the ex gave me your number. He said you would be down for a good time." I asked him 3 or 4 times if he was sure because I honestly thought it was too good to be true, you know? But he swore up and down that you would be cool with it. He said he would do it for $100. Is that okay? I was stunned. I couldn't believe that jerk had the audacity to give my number out. But I think I was more blown away by the fact that this other jerk actually had the nerve to call me and offer me money to sleep with him. Needless to say, I told the dude on the phone to freak off and hung up. In a blind rage, I thought about calling my ex and going the freak off on him, but I knew that would absolutely do no good, and he would only find enjoyment in seeing me so ticked off. So instead, I did my best to brush it off and told myself it wouldn't happen again. Well, I was wrong. I had another man call me the next night. This guy sounded like he was at least 100 years old, and my POS ex had apparently dropped my going rate down to $50 this time. Again, I was freaking livid, but instead of doing nothing, I immediately went into petty revenge mode. Now, just so you guys know, I am fully aware that my actions were immature and possibly even borderline illegal, but you have to understand, I was humiliated and absolutely irate. So, I went onto Tinder and created a profile with my ex's picture on it. In the bio section, I wrote, "Nice man seeking a woman to spoil and pamper, no strings attached. I've got money to spare and loads of it. If you're looking for help financially, hit me up." Then I ever so kindly added his phone number and a link to his Facebook account. Within a matter of hours, I had a whole slew of messages coming into the account. I ignored them, figuring they would get the hint and move to his phone or Facebook. I guess I wasn't wrong because about a week later, I called his phone from an unknown number and his number had been changed. His Facebook account had been deleted. Was it wrong of me? Absolutely. Do I feel guilty? Freak no. You know what sucks about this story is you almost have to get petty with it. You can't really be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the police about this," because like how do you really tangibly prove that, and the cops aren't really going to do anything about it. And like it's petty enough that you're not going to lawyer up over it, probably, unless you're made of money. I was even gonna say maybe you could do what people who get harassed and get sent inappropriate photos sometimes do, where like they take those photos and send them to the people's like moms on Facebook. But even that wouldn't work in this case because like OP said, they don't do anything and they still live at home with their parents. They're coddled. Tree Chemistry Please commented, "LOL nice. You could have accepted these creeps' offers and invited them over, but gave his parents' address instead, so he would have to explain to his parents exactly what was happening." Our next story is facing intellectual arrogance with an apple. I checked with my partner if this story is considered petty revenge and he said yes, so here I am. We have this friend who's quite intelligent, grew up in multiple cultures and countries, into linguistics, poetry, and philosophy, all of which are awesome, but he has moments of arrogance about what he knows. It's one thing to politely correct someone with facts and knowledge, it's another to make them feel dumb. He does the latter a lot. This one time, we all happened to be in a new city, and since we hadn't hung out in ages, we decided to be together and explore this new place. It started out fun, but once again his arrogance crept in and it dampened the experience a little. One morning, we were having breakfast at our lodging, and I bit into an apple. I ate everything except the core like any normie would, and he asked why I didn't eat the whole thing, with a tone implying I was a weirdo for doing so. I had a feeling it was going to go down that particular path again, and I didn't feel the need to be on the receiving end of his jabs this early in the morning. My thought process when it comes to apples is that I just don't want to deal with chewing the hard parts of the core and seeds, and while I've been able to eat an entire green pear without worrying about the same thing, I don't treat the apple the same way. Like, would I be missing out on life if I chose not to eat the core of an apple? Now imagine if I had to explain all that to someone like him, he would be receiving more ammo to fire shots at my life choices. Rather than fall into his trap, I decided to have some fun at his expense. Have the tables turned, I thought. I chose to respond with, it's the cyanide in the seeds. I knew that there was no way one lone apple core was gonna unalive me, but he didn't know that I was well aware of that. Oh, he was so amped that he cocked his butt-actually gun, ready to fire, only to be met with a smug, "Bro, you know I'm just kidding, right?" He was speechless, the look on his face priceless. For once, I beat him at his game. That wouldn't stop him from being intellectually arrogant during that trip, but this one win was enough to pull me through that and make me feel proud of myself. So, am I dumb here? Like, I know one apple isn't going to, like, do you in or anything, but, like, there is cyanide in the apple seeds, is there not? Like, I don't know about you, but I think that's a very valid reason not to eat the core of an apple and all the seeds. Maybe. And knowing me, it's very possible I'm just being dumb again and missing the whole point of the story. But I don't see where the "but actually" would come in on "I don't eat apple seeds because I don't like ingesting cyanide." Contrantler commented, "Just laugh at him every time he says something stupid trying to correct people. It doesn't matter whether he's right or not. The way you said he makes people feel dumb, just turn that into the pretense it is. He's trying to make you feel dumb for not knowing super intelligent, nobody gives a crap facts, but he's failing to do so. Every time he shows his lack of self-respect through one of his corrections, tell him that. Bruh, nobody gives a dang except you. So, why did you bother correcting that, you weirdo? Yeah, you go off at the wall, hun. I'll keep doing things my way." Do you realize that every time you try to correct someone, you just make everyone in the room feel smarter than you? You have way more power to make him feel dumb than he has to make you feel dumb. After all, it sounds like he's legitimately the awkward idiot in all of these situations, the way you describe him. Whatever he's trying to compensate for is not your problem. Our next story is, want to demand an elevator for yourself because you're afraid of dogs? Hope you like the smell of poo in a bag. I used to live in this 35-story high-rise condo. There were 3 elevators, and during peak times, the wait time for an elevator was 15 to 20 minutes at 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. I had a lab dog, well-trained and kept, but he had a series of vet visits after catching an infection that required regular bathroom trips until the medication side effects wore off. Long story short, I was walking Bubba and picking up poop at least once an hour for 4 days in a row. I used my PTO and planned out the appointment to the vet and the recovery, and my ex-girlfriend helped one night in particular so I could get some rest. I live on floor 34, yay me. So taking the stairs takes a minimum of 10 minutes either way with no foot traffic, and Bubba, after surgery, definitely couldn't handle stairs. I had one specific neighbor who was afraid of dogs, and I saw her visibly kick other condo owners' dogs to get them off the elevator. I don't know if she had a phobia, not my concern. But one day, I needed to get Bubba down, and she had asked me to wait for the next elevator. This was at 5 p.m. and I'd been waiting for 15 minutes. I told her to deal with it. I had Bubba sitting in the corner to try to be nice, but I saw her try to grab my dog. I stood in between them as the elevator went down and said not a chance, and let Bubba do his business once I was outside, bagging it up before going back up to my unit. At a critical juncture, I decided to keep the poo bags going forward and would tie them on her doorknob or place them outside her door on the mat for trying to grab my dog, physically kicking other dogs. I know it was wrong, but I don't care. And by 8 a.m. the next day, there were 10 steaming hot poo bags on her front door. They were generic white bags, and after that morning, I switched to black bags to avoid any condo board repercussions. I know it was petty, but come on folks, don't kick dogs, especially ones that just had medical care and are wearing a giant cone that need hourly bathroom breaks just because you want a private elevator. Eat poo, dog hater neighbor. So, I know a lot of people have had like bad dog experiences growing up, so maybe that's kind of manifesting in this person. Problem is, they're living in a communal space that's dog approved. If there's an expectation that somebody is going to take their dog out, or there might be a dog on the elevator, like I'm sorry, but it's definitely that jerk's problem than it ever would be OP's problem. Unless, of course, you know, OP's dog is acting out or something. Terrifying Bogwitch commented, I get being afraid of dogs. I'm afraid of dogs after several bad experiences. I feel uncomfortable around strange dogs and I don't go out of my way to be around them. I would, however, never kick or grab them. That feels like a great way to cause issues with a dog that otherwise wasn't paying attention to you. That's how you get bit. Once I get to know a dog, I'm a huge fan. I just don't like new ones bum rushing me while their owners yell, "Oh, he's nice." Our next story is, constantly pretend to spoil the end of every book I read. I'll do the same, but mine won't be fake. So, this was many, many years ago, back in high school, before the internet was widespread, and if you could get online, it was via dial-up and mostly just BBS boards, so spoilers were quite easy to avoid. And also, you literally had to read the books you were assigned in high school, unless you bought Cliff's Notes. I was and still am a prolific reader, grounding me, taking away phone or TV time, going to room without dinner. Nah, I'm loving those punishments. Take away my books. World ending. So I was pretty much always to be found reading some book or other during lunch or after school before band practice, etc. My then boyfriend would make a habit of seeing me read a book and just go, "They die in the end," just to be annoying because he hadn't read the book and had no idea what the plot even was. But he thought it was the funniest thing ever to pretend to spoil my story because I would always wonder if this time he was right. He never was, but I always worried. Then I saw him reading The Crucible for his English class. Not only had I read that play, but I'd seen it performed. I know the story. So I walked up to him, saw what he was reading, and went, "Oh, they die in the end," and laughed. He and his friends died laughing, thinking that I was just doing what he did and didn't think anything of it. 2 weeks later, he ran up to me fully upset and said, "They died, why would you tell me the end?" He was really angry about it, which I found hilarious as he would think of the height of comedy if the shoe was on the other foot. I just basically pointed out that I did to him exactly what he'd been doing to me. I never said I read the book or seen the play. I just said the same thing he'd always said to me. He never tried to spoil my books again. And yes, we broke up eventually. Shattered me then, but 30 years later I can see just how much of an emotionally abusive jerk he was. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like knowing that they don't know anything about the book or the story or whatnot, him saying that shouldn't have been that impactful, but then again, you think about it, you're back in high school. Just about anything could have been world-shattering material to me back then. Cavalry Lady commented, "He totally deserved that one. Bet it stung extra since he thought he was being clever all along." This next story is, constantly spoil my media to me through the years? Better not watch something I've seen then. I've known a couple of guys in a group I still regularly hang in since we were in high school. It's a varied group of different kinds of people, but the two guys I'm talking about have stayed very consistent growing up. I would say that we're all geeky on some level, but my geek is more the autistic kind who, for a lack of a better word, likes to literally touch grass. And theirs was more the super fan, spending money on merch and internet community kind. I don't mean that as a negative thing, but to describe why the setup for the issue was so frequent. Throughout the years, I've mentioned getting into some fairly new game, series, or a movie, but even if the movie was literally still in its opening weekend, these guys would have been at the premiere. So every time they would make some coy comment that somehow spoils something secretly to have a little laugh with the others who know. Or make a straight-up judgment on it being a bad movie, second season, game, or whatever. Now, problem is, I'm not that dumb, and they don't make them very smart. If you have a coy little tone and mention something weird about a character I like, I can deduce the goddamn joke. He's dying. If you give me some fan theory name, I can work out what the theory is probably about, for freak's sake. Every time I would tell them to stop. Every time they would say something like, "I wasn't spoiling anything," or "You don't know if that's what I meant." It always is. So finally, one of them mentions getting a new subscription to a service to see a series, and are pumped about it. They've seen the first season, they say. Second one's still to go, so no spoilers. I mention that, "Oh, I've seen that show." Someone else in the room goes, "Me too. The second season was great." I say something genuinely not spoiling like, "Oh, I loved how insert fictional country name that has always existed in the show as the main setting looks in the second season." The guy immediately shouts, "Hey, no spoilers," with a stern look. Now this wakes up a sleeper agent in me that I didn't even know I had. I instantly remember every goddamn time he spoiled something for me. The freaking gall, I think. This goddamn hypocrite, I continue. So naturally I instantly go, "What? That's not spoiling. I didn't even mention which one of these two characters died." "Oh, oops." He was, predictably, mad and huffy and offended. Everyone else was amusedly annoyed at me, and then we moved on. I feel petty, but not regretful. Sweet relief. You know, I just have to say it really blew my mind when Ronald McDonald helped out Harry Potter in the back half of Deathly Hallows. I mean, call me simple, but I didn't see Voldemort teaming up with the Hamburglar, and God forbid what they did to Grimace. I'll never be able to think of Avada Kedavra in any other context again. Underthinker971 commented, "Well done, OP. As a teenager, I was the biggest fan of Harry Potter. I always used to read the books in English, so I would know them 1 or 2 months before they were translated in my country, France. The day The Order of the Phoenix came out, I ran into some kid at school with his brand new French copy under the arm. I said smugly, 'Hey, you reading this? Watch out at the end, because that character dies.' I saw the poor kid's soul leave his body. Few years later, I'd actually slowed down on my passion for Harry Potter, so much so that I hadn't even bothered buying the Half-Blood Prince. I finally asked a friend if I can borrow it. He's like, 'Of course, man.' Dang, I was so shocked when... And he spoils the very freaking ending where that other character dies. Karma is a bench. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That's it, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.